Hey guys, Kev here, and I want to do my first impressions on the Kizer October. See right here, Kizer October, DOCK, that must be the collaborator's initials. I don't know much about that. I'll try to look into that before I do a full review, but knowing me, I probably won't. I'll just keep saying DOCK collaborator. CPM 20CV, guys. There's your model number, V356981, and there's your Kizer marking. So in terms of billboarding, there's some going on there, but it's not too bad. I did go with the black on black version, and that was mainly because I wanted to not have the bacon looking handles. So for some reason, Kizer uses this micarta that has like stripes in it. I don't know what that's all about, but they use it a lot now, and I hate it. I think it's cheap looking, and they have one in natural, which basically looks like brown, a light brown, with these white lines, and it looks like bacon, basically, which is kind of gross to me. But it has a satin blade, I believe. It could be stonewash, but I think it's satin. And that's what I would want. I would love to have satin with the black micarta or satin with a green, something like that. But they had to do bacon micarta, so I just went with a blacked out blade, and I told myself if I really love the model, maybe I'll buy a bacon one, do a blade swap, and then sell the other one somehow. I don't know. But I don't see that happening, and it's kind of a spoiler there on my first impressions. I like this knife, but not as much as people were trying to tell me I would like it, and not because I'm just, trying to, be a rebel and say I don't like what other people like or whatever. I have my reasoning, and I'll get into it. But kind of starting out, and again, these are first impressions, so I'm not going to go through my normal list like I do in a review. I'll do that once I've carried this for another week or so. But kind of just looking at the knife, I think it's a pretty cool looking knife. I'm a big fan of a sheep's foot blade. I'm a really big Jesper Voxnäs fan, and Jesper loves a good sheep's foot. At least he likes to design them, and this kind of has those vibes with the finger choil, the ergos. It kind of has a Jesper feel, but it just sort of misses the mark a little bit for me on that, because when you're holding a knife that Jesper has designed, usually you'll get a very comfortable grip in both positions, right? And especially in this forward position. And for me, I think this knife is made for either a smaller hand than mine or a larger hand than mine. Now, I have a little bit larger than average size hand. I have a large to XL size glove, depends on the glove that you hand me. Like a golf glove, I wear an XL. If it's like a gardening glove or like a work glove, it's usually a large. When I hold this knife back here, I can just get four fingers on to where the pinky's hanging off, but it has control, if that makes sense. It's on the clip there. Again, I'm left-handed, so it's a little different for righties, but it's okay. It's just not like I have a grip, right? But I'm feeling kind of tucked in by this. The jimping right here is very light. It's not very rough, but it's pretty smooth, but if you feel it, it's a traction point, which is cool. But I just don't feel like I have any control of this blade. I mean, look how far away it is from my hand, right? And when you're cutting something, sorry, let me get some paper here. When you're cutting something, being that far away makes it hard to know where you're at. I'll tend to go too far and then be using this choil. Now, the edge on this 20CV is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they did a great job with the grind on here. I believe it's a flat grind, but it's a very tall flat grind because of how tall this blade is. It's a relatively tall blade. Let me get this paper out of here. You guys can see how well she cuts, which obviously is a plus as a knife. Here is a Spyderco Paramilitary 3, and here's a bug out. Now, I don't normally do a lot of like size comparison type stuff, but if you look at these, you'll see it's more comparable to a Para 3. The bug out's a little bit bigger, and like ergo style and stuff, it's going to be more like a Para 3. So I'm going to put away the bug out here. And ironically, these are all in my Carta. But what I want to show is that when I'm holding a Para 3 in this back grip, I just feel like I have more control of this blade. I feel closer to it than I do when I'm on this. It just feels like I'm a mile away. Like, look at that gap, you know? Whereas on the Para 3, it's only like this, right? And then when you choke up on the Para 3, now you have insane control of this blade, right? Hopefully that helps with kind of size comparison and showing you what I'm talking about there. Also, ergonomically, you'll see on the Para 3, I get the whole knife in my hand down here. I don't feel like scrunched in. I can kind of spread out a little bit, and I get a good grip. I have this ramp right here, which feels phenomenal, right? And then when I choke up, it's, you know, it's lights out. It's Spyderco ergos, right? Just feels good. This hump is just kind of right here. Perfect. Now, when you go back to the October, what happens is when you choke up, now you're up here in this choil, which is generous, right? Which is good. But this hump is huge. Like, this right here is in between two fingers, and now I'm like forced to spread out my fingers so far, or I have to like almost do a 2-finger choil, which, no, that feels weird. So it's just so different ergonomically and comfortability wise. It just doesn't feel as good. See that small hump? See that huge ass space there? This is basically from here to here is a 1-finger choil. You're only going to get 1 finger in there comfortably. If you do this, it just feels weird. So you got to kind of back up all your other fingers to back here. And now you have that huge gap in there, and it kind of makes it feel weird when you're using it. Whereas when I hold this, all my fingers are still close together, and I have really good control. At least that's how I feel. This is all, you know, subjective type stuff here. But that really kind of ruins the ergos for me. Like, you know, on paper, it makes sense, and it looks comfortable and everything. But in practice, for me, it just doesn't work. So what I'm saying is, for somebody with a smaller hand, perhaps they could fit 2 fingers up here, and now you're bringing everything closer together, right? Now you're kind of like, you have that control again. But this just feels so awkward to me. And if you had a bigger hand, that would probably be like the perfect choil. Like Kyle, my good buddy, my brother, DTOM Knives and Gear. He probably would love this because he just has one big-ass choil for his giant-ass sausage finger. And then he could bring them together. So that's where I'm kind of saying like a smaller hand or a bigger hand would probably be better for this knife than my size hand. Okay, sorry. So I know I rambled there, but I really had to get into that. Now, you guys know one of the key features on a knife for me is detent. It's action, right? Action snob over here. And this knife fell absolutely on its face when I got it. So when I did the unboxing, I was pretty positive about it, but I noted the detent being extremely light. And I really did, guys. I really tried to just accept it and be like, okay, I can deal with it. They did the light detent because it's a flipper and a middle finger flicker, and they wanted to make sure that the middle finger flick was good. But I had times where I would go to flick it, and it would like just kind of like slop out to here while my finger was in there. Like, I was trying to put pressure on it to fire it out, and it would just kind of just leak out to here. And you'll see right now it's not doing any of that, and that's because I adjusted it. I spent about an hour and a half with this knife the night I got it. I almost ended up having to, contact Kizer for warranty because I almost ruined the knife. So what I did was I took it apart, and then I took the liner out of here because obviously the liner inside you would see, and the reason I'm not doing a disassembly is because I did it. I have it working perfectly, and it's Loctited, and I'm not messing with it at this point. I'm letting it break in. But when you take this apart, you'll have the two scales, obviously, right? And then on this side, the liner basically just falls out. On this side, it's held in by the clip. If you've ever taken apart a Vox F5.5, it's literally the identical takedown, except for with that, it goes back together like you just kind of put it together like a burger, and it freaking goes right together. This thing was a struggle. So anyway, I took the liner out because you don't want to be bending the lock bar with the liner on the scale, because you could accidentally, crack the scale or bend something you don't mean to. It's just better to take it all the way apart down to just the liner, right? And then I just bent that liner in this way so that it would put more pressure, right, on the detent ball going in to the hole in the blade, so that now there's more pressure in there and it needs more pressure to pop out, hence stronger detent, right? So first I ended up doing it too strong, and then the lock bar literally would shoot all the way across and into this area here, and it wouldn't even lock up. It was pretty bad, guys. So I was like, oh crap, that's too strong, and I can't even lock my knife up. Then I went back, and then it was too weak again, where it would just it would literally just flop out of the knife, like it had no detent almost. And at this point, I'm like a half hour in, and I am freaking out. Like, I ruined this knife, but I figured it was 130 bucks. Like, I'm just gonna do what I gotta do. I'm not gonna sit there with this shit detent and deal with it. So I tried it, right? I'm not an expert on adjusting detents. I'm good at tuning knives in the fashion they already are. I'm good at getting the pivot in the right spot, centering, getting the action to drop right, that kind of stuff. But not like adjusting lock bars. That's not my thing. I've done it before. I did it on an F5.5 before. So I have experience. I'm just not, like some expert on it. I just want to make that clear. So I ended up getting it to a point after about an hour where it is now, where it still has relatively early lockup. It's not like, the lock bar is all the way over here or something. It's a very solid lockup. Like, it's not going anywhere. I have it to where when it just drops, it pops on. You see that? It does lock up when you do this. So at one point, I had it to the point where I would do that and it wouldn't lock up, because I had it too light or I just didn't do it right. And knives need to break in once adjusted. So anyway, I got it to where now the detent, it opens every time. It will lock up. I can fail it probably if I really try. Okay, I pushed that. That doesn't count. Yeah, I'm like hugging it, if you know what I mean. Like, if I actually pull it, it fires out every time. And the flick is so much more satisfying because now when you flick it out, you get enough pressure and it just fires out, right? So now I can sit here and play with this and really enjoy it, and I did have to sacrifice a little bit of drop shut, so it does drop like that now. Couple of shakes and it's down. But before, it basically would just, you give it one little shake and it would glide all the way down. And of course, I can still, do that, and I will take that trade-off. Because again, I'm making it where there's more pressure on this lock bar in this direction, right? So when it goes to close, there's still a little bit of pressure being put by that spring or lock bar going over. So when it is coming down, it has a little more resistance on the close. So it's not going to guillotine drop like it did before. And that's something I talk about a lot, guys. I would take that trade-off any day, even though I love a guillotine. I will take the little bit of a stronger detent over that. That's something that CKF struggles with. They tend to limit lock bar pressure to get guillotine action, but then their detents tend to suck. So it's just, it's a personal preference thing, and I got it. All right. So I just want to explain that I tuned the shit out of this thing. Now, once I did that, I spent the next half hour to 45 minutes trying to center it. I don't know what happened, but somewhere along the lines, even from get-go, like before I even tuned the D10 at all, I could not get this thing back together centered. And I put different bearings in it. I tried all different kinds. I ended up going back to the stock bearings because nothing was really making the action any better because it's already pretty good, but I just couldn't get it centered. Now, I have it to the point where it is so close, but you can clearly see the gap on this side is less than on this side. And that is what bugs the ever-living shit out of me about knives sometimes. But if you look at the tip, it is almost right at the center line. So sometimes you got to just, you just got to deal with shit. And I got to a point where I was just done. And I put the Loctite in. I got it as tight as I could. I mean, that pivot is tight. It is not going anywhere. And even cranking it down further is not going to bring it to the clip side any further. I tried. So this is what I'm left with. And I think most people out there would take this in a heartbeat along with that extra detent. I mean, it's really cool, guys. You can middle finger flick this knife. You can ring finger flick this knife because there is a fuller running down the side there, so you can get in there and flick that. You can even pinky flick this knife if you get it. Bang. You can pinky flick it. Can I do, what else do I need to do to have it count as 5 fingers? I got to do the index. How the hell do you do an index finger flick? This is fucking hard. I can't do it. I can do a thumb. Hold on. I can do a thumb. Oh, God. This is what happens when you're on camera, guys. I can do this all day. What the hell's going on? All right. Thumb flick in. Oh, hey, index. Does that count? Does that count? Come on. There. All right. Fuck it. 5-finger challenge complete, sort of. Probably do it right-handed. Yeah, I got it. All right. Whatever. It counts. There is a little bit of a lock stick, sort of. There's a little more than there was before because of what I did, but I am 10 times happier with it the way it is now. So that's what matters, right? But ultimately, somebody tried to tell me, I think it was Dustin on Instagram or Facebook, that this is as good as an F5.5, and I just can't get there. Ergos specifically are just not as good. I mean, it's good. It's just not as good. I think it cuts fantastically. I think the action is good. I'm hoping that maybe I just got one with a light detent and most of them are a little better than that. I do like the flipper tab because it's kind of Vero style. It's kind of vertical, so you do kind of force yourself, even with a light detent, to always flick it open. Especially like most people out there watching, you probably just, you probably just flick it, right? You don't sit there and do the stupid shit I do where I'm like, how slow can I flick that and hope it doesn't, I'm just crazy. So, yeah. Those are my thoughts on this knife. It's pretty lightweight. Oh, one last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is important. It feels cheap. This is a big thing, right? Yeah, I saved it for the end, guys. It feels cheap. It does. And I was talking to Jared Neve about it, and he made a good point. It's because it's super lightweight. like super thin micarta that's milled out, and then there's nested liners in there that are steel. I think if they were titanium liners, it would make a big difference. I just think it would feel sturdier, like the F5s. They have the same kind of construction, basically. I mean, it's micarta scale with a nested liner in it, but it's a titanium nested liner on those. And I do venture to guess, mine is out on loan right now. I venture to guess the micarta is a little bit thicker on the F5s too, and that helps a lot. But it just has this cheap feel to it, and to be honest, so far from what I've handled, all Kizers have that feel, except maybe the sheepdog I had that was full titanium. There's just an innate cheapness that's built into this somehow. It just feels, even though it's not loosey-goosey, it just feels like there's no movement in here, there's no movement here, there's no movement there, nothing. But it still just feels kind of cheap and chintzy, sort of. I hate to say that, but part of it is the lock bars. It's this very thin, single kind of like, I don't know how to explain what I'm saying, but maybe the liners are too thin or something. And then the way the detent ball, I don't know if you can hear that, jumps onto the blade, and it just, I don't know, I just don't enjoy it. Like, I tried a Kizer Dukes before, and it had the same feel. Just this weird, almost like triple detent click thing going on, and it just gives it a cheap feel to me, and I can't explain it better than that. Hopefully it makes sense to you guys. And it's not necessarily a cheap knife, so you know, it just is how it feels to me, and I'm sure other people will disagree. But if you take this and compare it to an F5 side by side, I think you'll notice a big difference in how it feels, like sturdy wise and everything. So yeah, that is the Kizer October all blacked out version that has now been modded by me in terms of detent. And that is my first impressions. I apologize for the long video. I apologize for the rant, but I absolutely love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will catch you later.